And good evening. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. Welcome to Brooklyn. It's wonderful police sirens. It's funny, I have this phenomenon whenever I'm hosting coaching calls. Like, it'll be quiet in Brooklyn. And then whenever the call happens, fire trucks will drive by, ambulance, police. It's every time. It is what it is. I live where I live. So I hope everyone's doing good. You had a fine Thursday. You're getting your shit done and not sleeping through life. Can't do it. And it's really important to monitor where your attention goes. Because as you know, with algorithms and so forth, attention is currency. He who can command attention, or that which can command attention, is the king. Or, in relation to our topic tonight, is the god. Because eyeballs, that's where the money's at. Who can grab the eyes? And women have had your eyes for such a long time. Such a long time. And you feel it and know it. But I understand it's very hard to break out of patterns. It's hard to break out of religious conditioning, to break out of worship. And it's been going on for so long that you don't even realize that you've become a worshiper. It just feels natural. It feels natural to chase after girls. It feels natural to laud over them for their beauty. And if you do something that, I don't know, is perhaps in the opposite direction of this, it almost feels sacrilege. Like there's a deep, like there's a visceral discomfort that comes along with it. If you say something that perhaps might be taken the wrong way. I know this because my guys, some of them have difficulty giving commands. They have difficulty, excuse me, difficulty just saying, get on your knees, or open. And this makes just simple stuff like that feeling really uncomfortable. And I can understand if it's a girl you don't know, a girl that you've just met. But these are guys that have, a regular lover or a girlfriend. And they have trouble just saying, open your mouth, or just open. I like just saying open because it can be, it can be implied. An implied meaning can traverse over many layers, right? Because I'm saying, yes, open your mouth, but I'm also saying open yourself. Open your emotions, open yourself to me, open your armor, open your will. So just saying open is it's a very powerful thing to say when you're saying it from a seat of power. But you can't say that from the feet of your woman. You can't do it. It's impossible. It would look strange. It sounds strange to her and to him. And that's why it feels off. That's why it feels terrible. Because the acolyte is not supposed to give commands to the god. Right? That's not the way these things go. The acolyte does not give commands to the god. You'll be stricken down. The crops will be poisoned. Famine and pestilence will come through. What were the four horsemen? War, famine, pestilence, and something else. I don't remember. What's up, Wicked Scorpion, Phil, and Rickster? Doing well. Hope you guys are doing well also. Death. Duh. War, famine, death, and pestilence. So it's like if I upset the god, she will rain down war, famine, death, and pestilence. But really, that it looks like rejection, humiliation, making fun of him, loss of respect, or maybe not even because there isn't respect, but loss of desire, loss of sexual attraction, and it feels like the four horsemen of apocalypse have come busting through your door. So we're going to talk about. Well, yes, it is, but it's not something that is, entirely false. I mean, like, look at your Instagram. Oh no, I get you, Wicked. I know you're not being a wise ass. Look at your Instagram. How many women do you follow that you don't even know? That the only reason why you're following them is because they're good looking. That is worship. That's worshiping an idol. Yeah. And didn't that one bearded guy, not me, but the other bearded guy, say, "Thou shalt not worship false idols"? If you're into that, dude. But an idol nonetheless. So how many girls are you looking at? If I were to look at your Discover page on Instagram, how much would be filled with beautiful women? I've got a little bit, but it's mostly like art, drawn anime, some AI art. But the pretty girls that are on there's not photographs of girls. It's all artwork, motorcycles, and weird stuff. Like those weird like AI videos where people are morphing it to different stuff. That's what I have. Oh, and cats. Yeah, I don't think anyone can avoid having cats in their feed on their Discover page. They're like the virus of the internet. So, but yeah, that's where the worship is. So let's take a look at what I've got here. So it's gonna be a little bit of allegory, a little bit of truth. So when I say women are your god, I'm not really speaking spiritually. I'm describing the psychological relationship. So a god is anything you offer your power to, anything you make yourself smaller before, anything whose approval determines your worth, anything you secretly pray to with your actions. And modern men, especially those afflicted with nice guy disorder, they worship women the same way acolytes worship their deities. So if you look at a religion, every religion has rituals. The acolyte lights candles, they kneel, they whisper prayers. They keep their God as their mental point of origin for everything that they do. And the nice guy, he texts good mornings, he buys dinners, he over apologizes, he performs, asks if she's mad at him. And the ritual is the same. He's trying to please his God. He sacrifices his authenticity for her comfort. He offers his spine on the altar of her approval. He confesses his sins, not to cleanse his conscience, but to be absolved by her approval. This is worship. But to him, It's mistaken to be love. So the temple of the feminine looks like a relationship, but it's not. It's a hierarchy disguised as romance. She's the goddess, unknowingly placed on a pedestal so high that she can't even reach the man kneeling at her feet, if she wanted to. He's praying. He's not relating to her. He's not in a relationship. It's a one-way thing. He's seeking salvation, not connection. So every time he asks, "What do you want me to do?" he hands her the crown of his own authority. Every time he hides what he really feels to stay safe, he builds another wall around the temple. And when she pulls away, because the goddess always tires of the worshiper, he calls it heartbreak instead of realizing it's excommunication. So the question is, why does he worship? And it's because he's terrified of being godless. If she is his god, her withdrawal is like death. Her disapproval is judgment. Her validation is heaven. So he performs, dutiful, loyal, perpetually afraid. He tries to earn grace, but love is not earned through worship. It's met through presence. So at some point, the nice guy starts to realize his religion is killing him. He notices that no matter how many prayers he says, no matter how often he sacrifices himself, he's still not fulfilled. His goddess isn't bringing peace. She's bringing anxiety. And here's the truth most guys never face. He built the temple himself. He made her divine because he refused to become divine himself. He outsourced his self-worth to the feminine. He wanted her to tell him who he is. He wanted her to mirror back the God he should have been cultivating within himself. When a man reclaims his godhood, he doesn't destroy women. He destroys idolatry. He steps down from the altar and stops praying for permission. He reclaims his own temple, the body, the mind, the breath. He realizes that the same energy he used to worship her was supposed to be used to build himself. He learns that devotion isn't worship, it's reciprocity. That the divine feminine doesn't want a follower, she wants a counterpart. She doesn't want your prayers, she wants your presence. A true man doesn't kneel before a woman. He stands before her, unmoved, unflinching, open. He sees her not as a god, not as a servant, but actually his mirror. He honors her beauty without making it his compass. He cherishes her body without losing himself in it. He listens to her feelings without letting them rewrite his truth. That's the paradox. Only when he stops worshiping her does he become worthy of being this god, and then, in turn, earns her devotion. The nice guy is just a priest of this false religion. He serves to be loved. He hides to be accepted. He preaches goodness while secretly resenting his goddess for never giving him salvation. When this man awakens, it feels like heresy. He stops apologizing for existing. He stops explaining his masculinity. He stops treating attraction as a sin. He learns to say no and not flinch. He learns to want without begging. He learns that goddess only kneels before the god. If you must worship something, worship truth, worship yourself. If you must kneel, kneel only before your own integrity. If you must sacrifice, let it be your own need for approval. Because until a man stops treating women as gods, he will never meet one, only idols carved from his insecurity. And once he stops worshiping, he starts leading, not from control, but from sovereignty, not from fear, but from faith in his own divinity. Stop praying to her. Become what she prays to. So that's what I have for you guys around this. I hope that makes a lot more sense to you, Scorpion. I know there are. Yes, I mean, no one has only one thing in their IG, right? Of course not. That's impossible. But yes, not gonna lie, there's a lot of women on my IG. So why are you following women? What's the point? The only time that I find it to be worthwhile to follow a woman is that if she's got some sort of platform that can offer value to you, such as, maybe she's an educator of certain something. Maybe she's a nutritionist. Maybe she's really funny, right? Who knows, right? But it's something of value beyond just what she looks like. And there's so many accounts where the girl's just standing there, not even speaking, just like wearing different outfits and doing movements or something. And so many guys follow, they worship, right? They worship their idol of the feminine. And then at the same time, desire respect from it. Make that make sense. How can you be at the feet of something and desire respect from it? That's impossible. But that's contrarian to how so many guys operate, like psychologically, because they think, well, if I listen to Justin and get up off the ground and stop kissing her feet, then I'm not going to get any of her attention. I'm not going to get any of her love. I'll be just invisible if I don't worship. And this is the step. This is a huge step to get away from that positioning of being on your knees in front of a woman. And I don't mean literally. Well, some guys are, but very few. But figuratively, being on your knees in front of a woman. And this destroys your spirit. It weathers away your spirit, kind of like, you ever see those very strange rock formations in the desert? And they're really, really weird. And it's because, the winds blow all over the place and there's sand floating in the air. So it kind of works as like this weird random sandblaster. And it carves these stones into very weird shapes. And that's what happens to your core. This is what happens to your spirit. Your masculine presence just gets carved in the same way. And just like how these rocks look strange, it too becomes distorted. And this is what happens over time. But this is the fucked up part. Humans, all of us, are incredibly adaptive. We can adapt to all kinds of situations. And this is why we can, we're still here, okay? We've learned to adapt to almost every biome on the planet except for Antarctica. We live everywhere. I mean, even in the desert, there's people who have thrived. So we adapt like crazy to all sorts of environments. And in ones that we can't survive in, we create ways to survive. We have submarines, we have spaceships. It's just something we're good at. We have a very strong survival instinct, and but also a very complex psychology. And you combine these, and you have these you have plausible deniability. We have confirmation biases. We have justifications that we tell ourselves of why we are doing the things that we're doing. And it's and largely invisible to us, but your friends can see. Your friends can clearly see it. And if, your buddies are at all worth their weight in salt, they will tell you. And they'll say, hey, man, what are you doing? Why are you running after this woman just just killing yourself, groveling at her feet. And I think that today's man is so afraid of that because, being a simp is very much within the public consciousness of men, and none of them want to be seen as a simp. None. So they keep their simpery very hidden. They keep it obscured because none of them want to be called out. But they're all simps. So you imagine like a room full of simps, but they're all hiding their simpery from each other because they're afraid that each of them would call each other out. But they're all still simps. And this is destructive, right? This is because everybody's worshiping everyone. And you really, really have to recognize this within yourself if you want to break out of it and start nurturing and developing your dominant masculine presence. You cannot have respect from your knees. It's just impossible. You can't do it. Sorry about that. So, yeah, you can't develop respect within someone else from your knees. So you have to stand up. And standing up is not spitting on the altar of your God. And this is what I see so much of. So much of this is within the behavior of men. Just go on any YouTube where there's some woman talking about some stuff that's, related to women, related to dating, related to feminism, pretty much anything. And you're going to find a whole bunch of comments from guys just basically spitting on the altar of their former God. They're pissed. They're pissed still that because they haven't moved on, right? They're upset that he didn't get the salvation that he was looking for, that he was hoping for. And this just leads to bitterness, a bitter soul. This leads to a bitter heart. And you're never going to grow as a man with bitterness. Really, the growth, it comes from like letting go of bitterness, letting go of resentment. You ever hear that phrase that resentment, like holding on to resentment, is like drinking poison in the hopes that the other person will get sick? Resentment is a useless emotion. So is guilt, and so is shame. These emotions do nothing for you, but you hold on to them. You hold on to them like crazy. Guns, thank you for putting the links in the chat. It's funny because you changed it, and then I was having such trouble with Acuity. Sorry to deviate here, but Acuity sucks as a scheduling app. It's way too fucking complex. Unnecessarily complex with so many options, and it's not intuitive the way you just want to set something up, create a calendar or whatever. So I got rid of Acuity and I went back to Calendly. Yep, went back to Calendly. So yes. I'm just grabbing that link. So here you go, guys. Well, this is the one directly from my website. Yeah, that's it right there. But yeah, Calendly is a lot more simple. But that's kind of, that's related to the point I'm trying to make. What? Scheduling apps? Well, the the nice guy worshiper, he is not going to try to solve his problem. He leans into the problem instead of realizing that there's a problem and then solving it. He would say, "Oh, I really want this," and dig in harder. That's what these guys do. They try harder in their efforts. Maybe that's why I'm, you know, that's why I'm I don't know. But these days, I feel like guys aren't taking action at all, right? Because they're so afraid of being labeled as a simp or labeled as a nice guy. So they don't do anything. They're frozen. That's the impression that I'm getting. Let me know if you think otherwise. But I mean, there's a lot of talk of guys saying, "Oh yeah, I'm out here. I'm outside. I'm talking to a lot of girls," and I think it's a lot of fish stories. Because guys, they'll go fishing and they'll catch like a 13-inch fish, but when they're telling the story, it's like a 25-inch fish. They always overestimate. Women will underestimate. They're like, "Oh yeah, I was only with 4 guys." And it was really like 14. And then guys who are with 4, they're like, "Oh yeah, it was like 400. When the average in America for guys is 5 to 8 in a lifetime. Yet everybody's a fucking player. Don't you love it? Every guy is like, "Oh yeah, I'm the Mac." And like that might feel better to your ego in the moment, but every time you lie on yourself, it takes you further away from your own throne. Because do you think a king has to lie? No, because he doesn't fear the judgment of others. He doesn't fear the judgment of himself. What's up? Hey, how can I marinate the pussy before the first date? Well, do you have a first date set up? Or is this like purely a theoretical question? Based on my previous comment about guys being out here. I guess it doesn't really matter. Well, marinating it's tough if you don't have a handle on things as far as communication goes, because a lot of guys just don't have a strong mouthpiece. They don't have a free imagination. And what I mean by free is that their imagination is tamed by their fear. So in order to like really get good at marinating pussy, you have to let go of your fear and have a fuck it sort of attitude, and not give a shit if you lose that that chance to have intimate time with her. Like, really just don't give a shit, as you shouldn't. Like, it really doesn't matter, honestly. What matters is you developing your skills, right? So that you can feel more comfortable in any situation, any form of media, whether it's texting, voice notes, video, in person, over the phone, fucking smoke signals, holograms. It doesn't matter. Okay. But it's a process, okay? Because we take communication for granted, right? Because most of us can communicate verbally, unless you have some kind of medical condition. Most of us can communicate, but we think because it's just come so naturally, because like, wow, I've been communicating for decades, that we get lost on the fact that it's also an art form, just like writing, right? We can all write, or most of us, but there's some people who write so well, they can bring you to tears. They can make you laugh at a page. They can transport your imagination to a completely other world. Or poetry, where you get moved in a way that like you can't even describe in words. So getting good with verbal communication, you have to treat it like an art form. You have to study. You have to develop certain muscles and a way of seeing things, certain skill sets. And one of those skill sets is verbal illustration, being able to paint pictures in her mind, transport her imagination somewhere else. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be sexual, but if the conversation has become flirty and sexual, then you can, right? And there's a number of ways of doing this. It can be, painting a picture of what you will be doing to her, or you can tell a story of something you did with another woman, which is fine because it sort of like adds an element of like basically cucking her, and which actually causes a bit of anxiety, which then drives up her attraction. So, if she's already attracted to you, okay. But I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm not going to try that because I'm afraid of, losing this so-called opportunity. That's shooting yourself in the foot. Like I would rather get the gains from taking risks than, get pussy by playing it safe, because it's better. Like the gains are better because they last longer than the pussy, you know, the benefits, they last longer. So, that's one way. Another way is, and you get good by doing that from reading erotic literature. And there's tons. There's so much erotic literature out there in the world. Just do some research, find out like who the good authors are, and just get some of their books. Try to look at different authors, read them, and understand the architecture of what they're doing. Don't just look at the story and be pulled into the story, but also look at how the author constructed the story, the pacing, the rise and fall of tension and things of that nature. And that's what you need to master, to really marinate the pussy in her mind, is to be able to control tension. And to get good at controlling tension, you have to really be okay with it snapping. That's really well, and also going flat, right? So on one end of tension is it going flat, just losing all tension whatsoever, like holding a rubber band with just no strain on it whatsoever, and that's just dead in the water. There's nothing. And then on the other extreme is that it's pulled so taut that it snaps. And then there's a large range in between those two states of a rubber band. You can go way out, you can come back in, and it still has tension on it. Okay. And in order to get good at that middle range, you have to be okay within yourself of both of those far end spectrums, of taking it too far and you've ruined it on either direction. And then that's okay. Because what you learn from that is greater than sticking your dick in a hole. Like you don't really gain much from that. She gains a lot. She gains a lot from getting fucked. She gets stress relief. Her brain turns off. She has orgasms. She like just kind of loses herself for a little while. She gets, her ego like blown up, like gets like attention, that sort of thing. That makes her feel loved or cherished. All sorts of different things. And it's like, what are you getting out of it? 2.5 seconds of massive dopamine release. It's like, I don't know. I'd rather get the skill set. I'd rather learn and grow. So you're gonna have to read, and you're gonna want to do some writing. You're gonna want to write, not necessarily on short stories, which you can. Like I like writing erotic short stories. It's fun, but you write scenes, just a scene, not the entire story. So you just pick a scene, like where the male character and the female character are in one particular environment, and you turn it into a sexual tryst, and just write that part, just a few paragraphs, and see if you can come at it in the same way that these authors did. Like, notice the pacing, the use of descriptions, the use of adjectives, to really flesh out what it is that they're touching, or what they're smelling or feeling, hearing, tasting, all of these things. And it's just engaging all of it. All right. So that's one way. Another way to marinate the pussy in our mind is through being immovable, not talking too much, not running your fucking mouth like a little girl, um, not being giddy, not being so chummy and happy-go-lucky, and treat her like a friend that you met on the playground, right? You have to I don't know if you were around when I was talking about the king, like the archetype of the king. And it's not about, telling yourself that you're a king, but you consider some of the characteristics, the behavior characteristics of a king. And you want to carry yourself with a bit of that regal authority. Now, you don't have to speak in Old English or some shit like that, but it's like you sit up straighter. You speak with less words, but more impact. You're unrushed. You're unmoved. You're unperturbed. There's a, like a sense of, pride and dignity about you. And so you like embody that. And don't be afraid to give commands. Not at all. And you can start with simple ones. And the more you do this, the more you put pressure on that inner nice guy, because he's going to be afraid. He's going to be really afraid of putting demands out in the world onto your woman, because you've been shown for so long that's sacrilege. How dare you tell the God what to do? Really struck down. You say, I'd like you to call me at 8:00 tomorrow and give me my panties. Oh my God, he's still like looking around, like waiting for the bolt of lightning to come out of the sky. My audio is bad? Really? Let me just check my levels. Thank you for mentioning. Input is hopefully that's better audio now. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know what was going on, but hopefully that's better. So what I was saying before, let me know if the audio is good at this point. What I was saying before is that you need to read erotica from different authors, understand how they're, the elements that they're putting in, and why, why it makes you feel a certain way, or paint imagery in your mind. And then, all right, thanks, Scorpion. You want to start writing your own scenes. So not an entire short story, but just a scene where there's a man and a woman in a particular environment. And then you slowly, okay, don't rush to it, but you slowly turn it into something sexual. All right. And then I was talking about tension and about how it's important to be able to be comfortable with controlling tension. And then I mentioned the rubber band. And, the rubber band has a lot of flexibility, but on one end it can snap, on the other end it's just dead. And you have to be okay with things going dead And you have to be okay with pushing that tension too much and it snaps and she loses interest or she feels offended or whatever. And the reason why you want to do this, because it challenges the nice guy inside you. Um, it it really makes for it makes for a better man, because you're pushing on those edges, and it wants to fight back. So when you do say something like, what did I suggest? Oh, call me at 8 p.m. and you won't be wearing panties. Like, that's a simple command, right? And if she is attracted to you, she likes you, that's going to be a real big turn on. Okay. And it doesn't matter whether you can see whether she's wearing panties or not. That's irrelevant, right? It's about the command. It's about seeing where her mind is, where that takes her emotionally. That's what's most important. And so like, you can't get into that space if you're in the position of worship. If you're like, oh, she's so hot, like, I want to see her pussy, like, go on video. Like, no, who cares? That's not what's important. It's about, is she following the trail that you're carving that's going to go deeper into an emotional state that's more freeing, more arousing. And but a lot of guys, like I said, they'll say something like that, and they'll have that fear that there's going to be a bolt of lightning coming down from their god, or their goddess rather, to strike them down for such heresy as giving the goddess a command. And that's what the nice guy inside is going to be feeling. He's going to be thinking like, oh shit, like, I can't do that. Oh my God, did I just say that? And he's going to be nervous, like, until he sees the reply and see what happens. But that's how you sharpen your edge. Like, you have to put pressure on it. You have to put heat on it. Like, like a forge. You cannot forge a blade without heat and pressure. That's just how it works, And then you just keep doing it and doing it, and it becomes a non-issue. Gosh, I hope the audio wasn't terrible the entire time. I wish somebody said something, but thank you, Scorpion, for mentioning it. But yeah, when I was like reading that thing in the beginning, was it still fucked up at that point as well? Let me know. Laying out like the worship and the goddess and all that shit. So let me know if that audio was terrible as well. I might just continue this and then fucking redo it some other time. Just redo the whole fucking thing. So, but yeah, so the storytelling, your imagination, not having fear of expressing these things, leading her into those things, either by description of what you're going to do later. You can even say like, hey, I gotten into some writing, and kind of like lay little crumbs, and she's like, oh really? Like, yeah, it's erotic literature. And she, really? Because that's like porn. That's like a girl saying like, well, I've made some porn, and not like with a studio or anything, like just myself. And it's not OnlyFans or anything. I just make it for myself. Like, a lot of guys would be like, really? And they might be offended, but I know they're interested underneath. I know it, because guys worship pussy. And so part of them would be like interested in wanting to see, at least. But yeah, so you kind of like tease with that little bit of like, hey, I make porn, the written porn, and she'll want to hear. And so you can either just let her have some of that, let her have a taste, okay? Or you tease. So I've always said that, like, once there is a known desire, okay, once someone knows that the other person has desire, that or whoever is holding that desire then has leverage. So now she has interest. She's expressed interest in these things, and then you just tease her with it, right? You say, well, I'd love to I'd love to read this for you, but I don't know if it's for you. I don't know if I don't know if it's if it's for your ears or something like that. And if you get to the point um, that once you get to the point where she's like really interested, and then you can kind of put in like a transactional sort of thing, right? You said like send me a picture of this, right? And don't like make it like about the pussy, like whatever, like just like pull your top down or something like that. That sort of stuff, like just little things, because it's not about like exposing her. It's really like exposing her body. That's not what it's about. It's really about exposing her, just in general vulnerability, like the willingness to follow, right? And if you do it right, um, it can continue on, right? Because if she learns that it's safe, or she gets a reward, right? You get that little bit of dopamine and the little bit of rush of like, oh my gosh, like he's making me feel uncomfortable with this, with this command, but then does it, right? And then she gets a reward on top of that by you giving her some of this story. And you don't give her the whole thing. That's the funny part, right? You like say like reading to her like with a voice note or something like that, so she can hear your voice reading this scene, okay? And then right when it gets to the climax of the scene where it's most intense, you stop, and she's like, "Wait, I want to know more." you know, I want to know more. I want to hear the rest. And then you can just kind of tease her about it, either humorously or seductively or whatever. Just don't ever say, "If you play your cards right." Stop using that fucking line. You sound so dumb. Okay, that's from somebody who like wants to act like they have power, but they don't have power, right? Like say like if you're a good girl, you know what I mean? Like say that. Don't say, I mean, and that's played as well, but it's not as played as if you play your cards right. You know, it's corny. So you just say, uh, you know, if you're a good girl, you get the rest. And then also just not. I also mentioned what was it? Not talking too much, not being too wordy. Use less words but more impact. So just don't do filler conversations. Don't fucking sit there on the phone with her and like jibber jabber and chat and talk about work or talk about food or talk about travel or talk about bullshit. Because the more you do that, the more you equalize things. You reduce the polarity, and you position yourself more as an equal that you met on the playground, and not an authority, okay? Or just at least someone to look up to, someone to respect, okay? 1 second. Yeah, okay. So and all of that has to do with just letting go of fear, letting go of the fear of letting go of the fear of just her, of that rubber band snapping, because she might she might she might get offended, you know she might find what you have to say as unpleasant. And it's like, well, all right, live with it, like deal with it, like whatever. It's not it shouldn't be your problem, really. It shouldn't be your problem at all. Hmm. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Like StreamYard is acting up all funny. 1 second. Okay, there we go. That's better. That's better. Okay. Gosh, this has been like a terrible stream technically. Whatever, we all have those days. But yeah, I wanted to say, I hope that was helpful. All right. It's nothing that you can like learn right away. That's the bigger point. So you can't learn these things right away. It's not gonna I can't be like, oh, do this, and then you're gonna be that guy who just effortlessly weaves her mind into your spider's web, and she's like, oh my gosh, my pussy's soaked, right? It's something that comes with practice, and with practice, you often make a lot of mistakes. I've made far more terrible drawings and paintings than I've made masterpieces. Gosh, I remember I was working with Fantasy Flight Games. It was on the Warhammer 40K IP. And I did this piece of artwork for the art director, and he came back and he was like, Justin, this is the absolute worst piece of artwork I've ever seen you do. I was like with him for like a couple of years as a client, or he was one of my clients as a contractor. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I have never heard that in my life, but I needed to hear it, right? I needed to let that rubber band snap. And, and that's just the way it goes, but that's what makes you better. So, do like, just fuck around, fuck around and find out, because that's what sharpens your edge. Yeah, a lot of dudes brag about fucking 50 to 80 women, but like Miles has said, I don't really care. Where are they all now? Yeah, it's really, it's really a shame. It's really a shame, because that's still worship. Like, for a guy to what do they say, lie on his dick? Okay, that's a form of worship. Like, that's putting the the woman like very high above you. And I mean, like, if I'm a squirrel hunter, am I really gonna bother bragging about how many squirrels I've shot? No, the fucking squirrels. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. It's not, catching squirrels isn't that great of a thing. But because there's this whole stigma, the religion that has been built up around women and worshiping their beauty, it becomes a thing amongst men of, like, how many have you gotten? As if that means something, okay? As if that means that you're valuable, right? It's like, haha, look, I'm seen as valuable by the god. It's like, great job, buddy. You're doing so well. It's like, I'm the big winner in the goddess's eyes. Look at me. I got so many. Good for you. Good for you, man. Your knees must be sore. Them. My subs don't even have knee pads, but you're definitely gonna need them. But yeah, it's really, having like these conquests, it really doesn't matter, right? Like, I've got this saying that just because you get women doesn't mean you get women. And understanding something is far greater than capturing it, right? Because if you have no understanding but you're capturing it, it's like you don't really know, right? You don't really have a body of knowledge, and I'd rather have that, okay? Because the girls in my life, they're not just taking up space. They're not here just to fuck. They're not like I don't know, just like something to fondle, or something to look at, right? Or something to put my dick in. I take it to, a bigger level, right? Because I know I can. And I know that my experience becomes greater when I get them to a point of, very like high level of trust, and which comes with freedom and vulnerability and growth and all that stuff. Like, their whole experience of self becomes different. And then therefore I get a different experience as well. That's far greater than just like banging different women throughout the month, right? It's just, I don't know. I don't get much. Maybe it's my age or whatever, but I don't know. I'm just kind of, I'm not like, I'm over pussy in the sense, the way like most guys are still like under pussy. Yeah, I'm not saying like I'm totally disinterested in it, but there's no longer a sense of worship. Not at all. There's no being like starstruck, right? Like, I don't get starstruck like at all. But I will get impressed. And looks can't be impressive, right? I mean, except if someone spent a lot of time and effort developing, say, like their body, and like they were fucking a fat piece of shit at some point, and then they really worked hard and just carved the fuck out of their body. Like, that's impressive, right? Not talking about shortcuts or anything like that. Like, they really worked at it. Okay. But that's it. I'm impressed by behavior. I'm impressed by mindset. I'm impressed by willingness. It's not a challenge anymore for a woman to open their legs. Like, that's not something that's hard with today's girl. No, it's not a problem. But for me to see them relinquishing their stiffness, relinquishing their will, opening up to me, and I don't mean telling me about their family and stuff like that, but allowing me to see like the scared little girl inside, allowing me to see the things that they don't really like about themselves, allowing me to see their insecurity. Yes, Dylan, wet hole the size of a quarter. Yep. That's actually from Steve. He said that once, like years ago, and it stuck with me. I'm like, yeah, that's like exactly, that's all it is. But there's this thing, but we take that thing and we develop a mythos around it. And that's what makes it impactful, is the stories, the narratives that we come to believe about these things. Man, Dylan, you just like shot me off onto a tangent, but I want to come back to that though. I really want to. I got to write this down. Jesus billboard. How do you manage and calm a woman's high anxiety? Okay, that's a great question. Well, it first starts with not having any anxiety yourself. Okay. Like, you have to be the opposite of her, and not in a condescending way. Like, I'm better than you, but more so is like, you're like this safe beacon in the room. Okay. And so that's where it starts. And it has to be something that's genuine. It can't be like this feigned, pretended cosplay of somebody who is chill, like it really can't be that. So you really have to be anxiety free in order for that to be the case. And this is what will kind of set the tone of calm. It's in your, but because that will come off in how you think. It will come off in how you speak, your body language and things of that nature. And then it allows you to lead quite easily. So if she's with you, it's a lot easier because you've got the body that's available to you. You can see that she's going, feeling really anxious about something, and you say, "Baby, come here," and you like kind of give a little pat on your thigh, so like directing her to come sit on your lap. Right then and there, that's a shift, okay? Because it's slightly infantilizing, okay? And one second. So, so that slight shift of like infantilization, it like kind of accesses the little girl inside. Okay. And if you're of that position already of being like, like I'm calm, um, I'm like the opposite of you, right? Then, um, then that kind of like sets that tone. Plus the little bit of like come sit on my lap, the infantilization that accesses the little girl inside. So you start kind of like holding that, right, with your presence. You start holding that little girl, and and then it's just a lot of acknowledgement. So because a lot of people like acknowledgement of emotional states goes really far, and this is with anybody, like not just girls. If you any like a friend of yours is like having a terrible day, right? Or anybody, and they're just really pissed off, or they're sad, or they're hurt, or something like that, and you just acknowledge their state, and you say, and you're really listening, and then you just say, "Man, that sounds really difficult, right? And that sounds really stressful." Um, but not from like a condescending, like down at your nose sort of way, So watch your tone. This alone is really powerful. Just acknowledging their state. Okay. And then while they're talking, okay, so there's a technique from that I learned from Chris Voss, who's he used to be like the top like terrorist negotiator for the government, for the US government. And he has these like videos and stuff that he sells. And I saw this one where it's like techniques that he uses, and he uses mirroring and labeling. And so basically mirroring is when the person is talking, they say a few lines, and then you take one of the last things that they said and you pose it as a question, right? And then so like the woman's going on about a story, and then she's like, and then she called me a bitch. And then you say, she called you a bitch? And then she goes on, and then she goes, yeah, and then blah 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 blah, and then starts going on to these things, and then she ends with, there's a natural pause, and it really fucking like hurt my feelings. That really hurt your feelings? And then she goes into that a little bit. Okay, while she's sitting there on your lap, like you're touching her, like you're warm, you feel solid, like it's a whole environment now that you're cultivating. And then after a few of those mirrors, you then label it, okay? And you start off with either it sounds like or it feels like. And so you say, it feels like, and all you do is just use the same words that she did. That's it. And you say, well, it feels like, or it sounds like you are, and then you list like, we're pissed off, you were hurt, you were confused, whatever those things. Just list a few of those things. And of course, like in order to do mirroring and labeling well, you have to be an active listener. So don't trail off. I know that's easy, like when girls are talking, to just kind of trail off in your own head. But, whatever. So you have to exercise, active listening, and so that you can utilize the mirror and the label. And what that does is it gives the mirroring, what that does is it causes them to open more, and they just let it out. They start talking and talking and talking. All right. And by you being like just grounded, right, solid, like not like her, you're not being pulled into any emotion. This starts like activating you as like the container, and then she can just kind of like flow into it. And the more that comes out, it starts like losing its pressure. Kind of like if a dam had a hole bust into it, and there'd be like tons of water coming out, and then after a while it would just kind of subside until like it was a trickle. And so, after doing these things, it allows her to open with the mirroring, and then the labeling is acknowledgement, because everybody likes to be acknowledged for like when they're going through something, whatever the feeling is. And so, um, that sort of stuff, it works. So it makes them feel acknowledged, and it really calms them down in that moment. Also, how do you deal with a woman that has a traumatic past? Depends on the trauma, really. I mean, if it's heavy, just walk away, especially when it was caused by a past significant other. I would just walk away. There's plenty of women who have trauma, but there's plenty of women who don't have heavy trauma. Okay, so if we're talking about sexual abuse, or if we're talking about graping, being beaten, not like the fun, sexy kind of beaten, just walk away. There's really nothing you can do. And I do believe that men have a great capacity to heal. I absolutely do. But there are wounds that are just so deep and so vicious that there's really nothing you can do. Yeah, that's it. So it depends on the trauma. It's like, I've had girls who've had like a, really strict father. And so the trauma is like emotional. It's not like nothing really terrible happened to them. They weren't like touched inappropriately when they were fucking 12 years old. That sort of stuff. But, if it's manageable, then I would. But if there is any kind of abuse, just leave it alone. Just don't try to change the woman, just change the woman. Yeah. How to recognize when a woman's resistance is testing versus a real no. Let's see. Well, I would say it's like a feeling thing. It's like an energetic thing. Like you can all right, if you've ever been around a woman who has sexual interest in you, or she likes you, she's got some level of interest in you, you can feel it. Like it's something you can like feel in your body, right? And I'm not talking about like, your dick getting hard or something like that. It's just something you can just feel. It's like intuition, right? And this is this is what you want to pay attention to. This is what you want to feel out for. And and you just know. That's what I would say. You just know. It makes it so I think it's pretty clear when a woman is interested in you. But you're talking about resistance, testing you, or just like a playful. And I think you could also tell when someone is just playfully seeing how you're going to handle something. You know what I mean? Like, because some girls like to play around. They have like a little bit of like a bratty streak in them, and that's okay, right? Because they just want to see if you're the man that they think you are, right? Because girls, they write stories in their minds. They they'll see you, they'll find you attractive, and then that runs some kind of narrative in their mind about you. And you don't know what it is, but it's likely good if they're still there talking with you and flirting and that sort of thing. But there's often, like safeguards, emotional safeguards. And so they don't want to just like fall into whatever. I mean, could you imagine like how bad that would be if every girl just fell into the frame of whatever guy was in front of her because it just seemed real. That's how we have fucked up girls. If it wasn't like, by family, if it was like through relationships, dating, and so on, it's because of, just poor leadership from men, poor influence from men. And that's where it all started. So, like, don't be that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I can't stand that sort of mentality. Like, I don't care what happens as long as I get my 2.5 seconds worth of dopamine. It's like, you fucking drug addict with tracks on your arms. Like, and like them, like, what else would you sacrifice? Like, you're already sacrificing compassion. You're sacrificing integrity. You're sacrificing leadership. You've got like a schoolyard version of influence, like just enough to get that drug. Like, how terrible of a man are you that you're willing to just, I don't know, just cause destruction and just kind of be sloppy with other humans just to get your 2.5 seconds worth of dopamine rush, And so in the ego hit as well, I don't understand it. You know what I mean? Because I want, like, I don't know. I want to bring a woman's spirit to her knees. That's what I want to do. And not to just leave it there. You know what I'm saying? Like, bring it to her knees and then raise it up, like, in my image. That's what I want to do. So that it's seamless and it's not done with cruelty or anything like that. It's done with great care and guidance and paying attention, as, like, you have to, if you want it to do it well. So yeah, I want the breakdown and then the build up, and it's done with care. It's not done haphazardly. It's all done with strategy, with the with the aims of having like a unit, right? It's like they say 2 heads are better than 1. Yeah, but what about 2 heads acting as one? Like, that to me sounds really powerful. So that's my aim. Like, what? Really? Just fucking? Like, okay. And that's fine. Like, you want to do that or whatever, but just don't let the don't let the mystique and the spellbinding of pussy really control you. Just know that, like, when you see a girl and you linger, right? You turn your head if she walks by. She has power. Like, she literally, without doing a damn thing, controlled your mind and then controlled your body. You know what I'm saying? That's like, I don't like knowing that that's possible. And you can break these spells by creating new narratives. And that's why I wanted to go back to the thing that Dylan mentioned. And I said the Jesus billboard. So I was driving earlier today and I saw this billboard. And it said something along the lines of like Jesus cures anxiety or something like that, or Jesus can free you from anxiety. And I was like, okay, but can he really? And believers would say, well, yes. And I would like to say that it's not really like Jesus doing it. You know what I'm saying? He's not there, like, in front of you and casting a spell or something like that. It's the narratives around these things that make it powerful, right? So, like, let's say I went to some distant land where they've never heard of this person before. And they said, well, I've got this problem. And I said, well, if you believe in this guy, right? This guy, Jesus or whatever, it doesn't matter who it is, but, we'll just use him because it's something that everybody knows. And he, he's got these great abilities and he can solve this problem for you. And but you don't say anything else, right? And let's say there's no book, there's no stories, there's no nothing else besides what I just said. It wouldn't land really. The person would be like, really? Like, can you tell me more? Like, who is this that you're talking about? I'm like, oh, I just told you. And they're like, oh, that's it? Yeah. And that's it. It would be dropped. There's no impact. What makes these things impactful, right? And this is more so what I want to talk about with belief. And this also circles back and connects to women being your God, is that it's not the thing that really is that powerful. Just like addictions, right? I say it's not the object, it's not the drug or the alcohol or the porn or whatever. It's the relationship in between. It's the narrative that gets created, which causes belief. It's the belief that's most powerful, not the thing you are saying you are believing in, if that makes sense. It's the narrative, it's the story. And so if you could then take just this person that you heard of, and at the point of first hearing about this person, like let's say you're a kid, or an adult, and I bring this character of Jesus to them. It's just this fictional being. Like I'm just describing a character, like I'm talking about Batman or something. And once I expose them to the narrative and in the Bible, the stories and all this stuff and the lessons that are woven into it and all that good stuff, now it starts taking form. Now it starts penetrating through, allegory and the lessons and whatever else happens. And now that standalone character who meant absolutely nothing because it was just out of context now has great meaning. And I was thinking, well, if you can do this with just, this character, right? You have this character and then you put it in a context with a narrative. And now that everything has intense meaning, it has a lot of impact. Why can't you do that with other things? Both addition and subtraction. So with the addition part, you can do that with your own narratives. If you can do this with, say, someone like Jesus, where at one point in time, he was just a character out of context. And you had, as a little kid, you had to learn about the stories and learn about this and learn about this. And then the context grows. Why can't you do the same thing with yourself, with your self-concept? And form your own narrative, your own belief, so that it then has impact on yourself. It's the same exact structure, right? It's all of this is just thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Like this, all the Bible stuff and all of that is just thoughts that are then kind of like materialized into like a belief structure that then affects you. It changes your perspective, changes your emotions. It can change your body, right? It can relieve that anxiety or stress or worry or whatever. And so it's just a structure of things. So why not, if you can do that with one thing, you can do that with another thing. You can just switch out the variables and maintain the same structure. Think on it. It's something that I'm doing with the Academy. And I didn't realize that I was been doing it. But if you see, like I'm writing these books and they come across as like these almost like religious texts or like sacred scrolls or something like that. And I realized, I was like, holy shit, like I'm creating like my own mythos, right? But it's not anything, no deities or anything like that. It's just purely, psychology, but it's written in a way that feels like some sort of ancient holy scripture. But it reads like a Bible. And so if you can construct something through narrative and belief, then that means you can deconstruct in the same way. You can take things apart. You can remove context. So just look at women. You remove a woman from the context of your beliefs that were formed through the narratives, right? I mean, there's like the basic narrative as an example, like sugar and spice, everything nice, right? Women are sweet. They're our better half. They're, I don't know, just all the, you know what I'm talking about. If you remove them from the belief, from the context, which is kind of hard because they're attached, they're just a thing. That's it. Like what you're considering as like beautiful, right? Or sexy, that is all based in a context, but that defines what beautiful and defines what sexy is. So if you remove that, then you can define what these things are. So that's why I'm saying, I'm not moved by a woman's beauty. I can recognize it. Obviously, like my optic nerves work. Yes. And there are things that I find pleasant and things that I find unpleasant or neutral. And that's okay. But I've reformulated or recontextualized what I find as beautiful. And it's not something I see. It's something that I experience. It's nothing that she possesses visually. Although I appreciate, like the girls that I'm with, I find them very sexually attractive. But the value of that doesn't go deep into the narrative. It doesn't write a narrative. It's purely based around behavior. And this is really what I want you guys to get more used to, is really looking more at behavior, because that's ultimately going to dictate whether things are moving well or not moving well. That's the only dictator of that situation, is looking at behaviors. And and if you're coming at the situation with authenticity, right? You're not trying to show off, you're not trying to be some guy, you're not trying to do this, not trying to do that, you're not lying to yourself or to her, then that's one less thing that you have to kind of like have in your mental purview, right? It doesn't have to be managed, because it just flows, right? If you're trying to be somebody, then that's part of your brain having to like take care of this and make sure that facade maintains itself, while at the same time you're observing her and watching her and things like that. When you're in a seat of comfort, when you're in a seat of authenticity, right? Then you're comfortable in that. You're not feeling afraid anymore of like, oh no, what if I rub somebody's feathers the wrong way? You're not thinking in those terms anymore. You're just comfortable. Then this allows you to observe, think, and lead so much easier, because that other voice isn't taking up space. That's what happens. And so from here, you can very easily lead, and you can very easily observe their behaviors and the consistencies that you're looking for, and just also the direction and the style, and it's like how they are. Okay. It's really important to understand how someone thinks. And, and if you're blinded by a nice body or a pretty face, you're gonna find leadership very difficult, right? Because those things, they have attachments, they have narratives. There's a context that these things are all blended into, and you're going along those lines with it. So then, if you were to do something that is contrary to that, like giving a certain command, or like, it's going to be difficult for you to cut things off. Like, this is why guys have difficulty cutting things off, because they're attached to the narratives, they're attached to the beliefs, they're stuck in a certain type of perception, of like, oh, she's like this. Like I'm really sorry to say, but it's just another thing, right? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but it's just another element. Okay, let me just say that women are just another element in life. That's it. There's nothing like more special than that. Just another element in life. Now I've got my mic here, laptop here, dog over there, camera over here. Like there's just things around. And like kind of holding into this and trying to like massage that idea into your brain is a good thing. It's gonna take the edge and put pressure on that nice guy who's like, no, like they have so much meaning. And not only meaning of belief, but also meaning to him that it's like, oh, well, if she, if the goddess recognizes me, if the goddess pays attention to me, if the goddess gives me her pussy, then I matter. That I'm the big man on campus. I get to tell my friends, right? I get to show them what a real man is like. Look at these pictures she's sending me. You know what I mean? Look at what she said. And it's like, I don't think they realize that that's child's play. It's child's play. It's one thing. See these girls on my wallpaper here, just kissing the hand, right? Sucking on the guy's thumb. Very simple stuff. It's not complex. But it's one thing for her to be like this physically, and she's just playing along because it's fun, because it's erotic, because it's a good time, right? And I'm not dissuading anyone from doing that. Like, it is fun, it is erotic, and it is a good time. And so you should do it, right? Enjoy these things. Enjoy polarity, right? But it's far different between them doing and being. Like, imagine just like the picture, the girl kissing the guy's hand. Consider that a symbol, right? We're looking at a symbolic representation of a state. And if that's her state, the state of holding her, her Lord's hand, someone who she reveres, someone who she respects, looks up to, someone who can see her better than anyone ever could. And she's in such a place of vulnerability. There's like, it's almost like a no-brainer that she would just like fall into his container, or flow into his container rather. This is a state. The other girl, right? Look at this as a symbolic representation of a particular state. Instead of just doing this, she's being it. This is a giving of the self. This is relinquishing. This is surrender. Not just submission, but surrender. Well, I'd say both of them are. But it's like, this is what like I'm looking for. These are the key points that I'm looking for. If I can't go fucking deep into the abyss inside them, I don't care. I'm not interested. I don't care. I don't care if it's like the fucking hottest chick I've ever seen in my life. Right? Like, aesthetically speaking. I don't care. If she's resistant, if she's scared, if there's no compatibility, I'm just not interested. Right? I want somebody who, a little bit of fear is okay. A little bit of fear is natural because it's the unknown. Like, follow me into fucking darkness. Right? I get it. And that's fine. It's natural. But having willingness despite being afraid. It's just taking my hand and, in other words, saying, okay, I trust you. I trust you're not going to destroy me, that you're not going to shatter my sense of self. You're not going to shatter and just let it be shattered, right? You're not going to shatter my core. You're not going to break me and leave me broken, right? I will break you. But I'm an artist. I'm going to break you and then build you into something that I think is better, that I think is more fulfilling for everybody involved. And there's a great sense of freedom in that for both people. Because a lot of times we are hindered by the narratives of our own identity that we carry around with ourselves that we didn't even come up with. It was some shit that we've just adopted from various sources over time, telling us who and what we are. And I know women carry around a really heavy, manufactured version of their identity. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna bust that apart. It doesn't really serve you anyways. Yeah, it's more or less a prison. So yeah, we're gonna do away with that over time. Mm-hmm. You called virgin. I think you already asked me this, didn't you? Virgin, inexperienced guys and BDSM domination. Didn't you already ask me this? Like last night or 2 nights ago? Yes. I work with all kinds of guys. All kinds. Because it's really about dominating yourself, getting yourself in line, quieting things down inside, simplifying things, streamlining things, getting rid of stuff. And you learn a lot. You learn a whole lot about, how to lead through influencing yourself, through, learning like the power of writing narratives. Okay. And not stupid ones that are, leading you to, a Dunning-Kruger effect. Like I'm not talking about that. Right. If you're not familiar, like Dunning-Kruger is a psychological effect where someone believes that they are more special than they actually are, or more talented than they actually are. We've met people who are like that. They think they're the best skateboarder, the best basketball player, the best fucking violinist or whatever. And you listen to them and you're like, oh, or you see them play or whatever. And you're like, what are you talking about? And their ego refuses to see the truth. They just think they're so fucking great. And it's like, dude, you haven't even scored like the entire time. What are you talking about? And then like all the times, like when they're not playing, it's always boasting, right? That's more or less like Dunning-Kruger. But no, we're not doing the Dunning-Kruger thing, right? That's not it. That's not the building up of the self that I'm talking about. The building actually comes from taking things apart, right? You got to take things apart and look at all the little pieces of what you think you're made of, and and then kind of laying them out and getting rid of the shit that just doesn't fucking make sense. And then realize that you've carried around like a lot of beliefs about yourself that you have no idea where it came from, or you do know where it came from, and it's just been a terrible source. Like maybe you had like a parent that was telling you that, you're not going to amount to anything, right? That you're, parents have said awful things to their kids, calling them a piece of shit, telling them they're worthless or whatever, or making them feel this way without the direct communication saying so. And so that leads to a belief, right? Because there's the characters, there's the narrative, there's a context, and that belief becomes very powerful because usually beliefs are tied with emotion. That's why they say never get into a conversation about religion or politics in a bar. Because beliefs, political, and religious, they always involve emotions. You can't have a belief without emotion. So, but that architecture, belief and emotion, that is a key to writing your own beliefs around your own state, around your own identity, around your own presence. And if you can encourage yourself to feel certain things around certain thoughts, then that becomes more reality to you. It becomes more of a reality. And this is how you start rewriting that narrative. It takes practice, but that's just how beliefs work. I mean, you didn't always believe in what you believe in. You learned it. And then over time, emotion started getting added to this. This is why, like in a lot of religions, they push in a lot of fear. They push in a lot of guilt. And this is great, like easy access to getting into people's emotions, fear and guilt. And so, but if that's the case, then that means you can use the same mechanisms, the same architecture for applying it to the self. So understand that. But as far as your question goes, it doesn't matter if you're experienced or not. Because you're always going to be learning. You're always going to be growing. You're always going to be a beginner. I'll go through stages where I come to a certain point in my own growth and understanding, and I feel like a beginner, like in that area. And I have to, I'm green. I got to understand stuff. I got to do research. I have to experiment. I have to, get some bruises. And that's just the way it goes, and it's sometimes even better when you don't have information already, because it's kind of a blank slate in that sense. And so, when you have certain experiences, that can taint moving forward. If you want to learn more about that certain something, like let's say swimming, right? You're like, oh, I want to go swimming, that sort of thing. But like your previous experiences with swimming have been fearful. Like all the water you've ever submerged yourself into was cold as fuck. And there, you almost drowned a couple of times, and maybe there was like fish in the lake and they bit you or something. And so you have all these like narratives and attachments that created a belief about what swimming is like, that it's scary, it's uncomfortable, potentially violent. And, so that with certain things that can be changed. But if you don't have that experience and I say, hey, let's go swimming, and you don't have that preconceived, that conditioned belief and perspective, then I say, hey, let's go swimming. You're like, I've heard of that, but I've never actually gone swimming before. I said, well, you're in for a treat. And I can start casting a whole new narrative because they don't have one. They don't have one yet. So, this is like kind of like how you deal with kids, when you're like trying to have them try new things. And you're like, oh yeah, like this is the best, What was the thing that I used to tell my daughter? Oh yeah. Right. So, I mean, she knew what sweets were like fairly early on. Not too early. Maybe I guess that is too early, like 3 or something like that. And so she knew what cookies were. And so I was having her, eat some fruit, and like there was apples. And so I would say like, do you want an apple cookie? And she's like, an apple cookie? I'm like, yeah. And I took my, big red apple and took a huge bite out of it. And there was just this circular piece. It was like a cookie, but it was an apple. And yeah, an apple cookie. And she's like, oh yeah. And I had this positive attitude. My my voice, my facial expression, the whole thing. So it was like kind of creating this narrative for her that there's this great thing that's called an apple cookie that is like this special bite that comes from daddy's apple. And so, that became a thing for us, creating a new narrative around this thing that she really didn't have any experience with. So you being inexperienced is actually a good thing, because you don't have to like unlearn bad habits, unlearn ineffective beliefs, unlearn poisonous perceptions. So it's not a bad place to be in at all. That's just your ego, right? The ego, like your beliefs around sex, what you should and shouldn't be and shouldn't have. It's like all this stuff, useless thoughts creating problems. I don't like it. So, all right. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Unless somebody has any last minute questions. I'm gonna have to review it, because if the audio was all fucked up like throughout a good chunk of it, I'm just going to let it go and just redo the show with the title, because there's always more to go. There's always more to unpack, and and just have fun with it. Yep. Do my own version of Happy Little Clouds. Speaking of which, have you guys seen those AI videos of Bob Ross where he's like flipping the fuck out on people? Where he's like painting, and like this cat comes in and he starts fighting with the cat, and he's cursing at it. He's a fucking piece of shit, motherfucking cat. And, he's like throwing paint at it or whatever, knocks over his easel. It's just really funny, watching him just lose his shit. There's all kinds of good ones like that. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna close this down, and and then after this fully populates the YouTube, I'll review it. And if the audio is good throughout, then that'll stay. But if it's fucked up, I'm gonna do this all over again. Maybe with a different topic in between. So we'll see. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me tonight. And we'll see you again, maybe tomorrow. And perhaps this weekend might be streaming with the fellas over on Manhood is a Skill Set show. We'll see if the schedules align. And any announcements? Yeah, I've got more new products in the tutorial section on the website. Easy to pick up. So take a walk over there and check them out. I can put that link in the chat for the tutorials, right? So there's that. And so check those out. And if anybody has any questions, just contact me on Instagram, thedominance.academy, and I'll answer whatever questions you've got. We can put you on the right path. All right. I'm done here. Thank you for watching the live. Thank you for watching on the replay. And we'll see you around next time. Appreciate you.